Okay, and here we go. Chapter 8. I finally got around to it. I have had a very, very, very busy few weeks because, I started some new jobs and I did a little shoot, and it's just been a crazy few weeks. I've also been doing my podcast. If you haven't listened, then it's going to be in somewhere in my YouTube channel. So give it a listen. I think my podcast really sort of fleshes out who I am and why I made some of the choices that I made in my life, and especially in concerns to modeling, etc. So it's really, it'll be really interesting for anyone that's watching this to watch that and just get to know me a little bit more. So yeah, the last video I did was on the Zara campaign and how I wasn't too happy with it. But this episode is going to be on my travels for L'Official Homme Germany. So I'd booked this magazine. I'd been told it's going to be 5 different covers with all these different photographers. I'm going to be flying from New York to Copenhagen to London to Hamburg to shoot with 8 different photographers and 5 covers of a magazine. And I was a little nervous. I was probably more nervous about the travel time than anything else, because there was a lot of traveling, and sometimes I wouldn't get to have much rest in between. But I'm excited. 5 different photographers, 5 different ways of seeing me, 5 different ways of shooting. I was about to experience a lot of artistry and creativity, and not only that, but it's for a big magazine, so I have to do well. This is going to be good for my career. Everyone's going to see it. It's going to be blasted everywhere. So I'll go from shoot to shoot. The first shoot, which I can remember, is I worked with a photographer called Eli Schmidt, and that was in New York. And I remember turning up and the clothes were sort of sexy. I remember they put me in this like thick painted on tan, so my skin was like super bronzed. I was clean shaven and I was wearing all this kind of like sexy sort of see-through clothing. And it's one of my first times ever really performing like real like sexiness in a shoot, and I really enjoyed it. It was great. I do remember being a little hesitant because, as I say, photographer model relationship is so important, right? Because I'm being very vulnerable here, and the photographer has to find some sort of artistic merit in me at the same time. So sometimes there can be a little clash between it. So I remember doing this shoot, and I remember, feeling a little awkward doing like this sexiness, and I hadn't really expanded outside of my comfort zone anyway yet. And I remember, being sexy and doing all this kind of stuff, but I definitely left that shoot being like, I think the photographer wishes they had a different model to shoot this kind of stuff with. Because at the end of the day, I'm like me, and what I produce is what I produce, and sexiness isn't really in my ball house, because, if that's the word, isn't really in my ball house because I just prefer to reserve that between me and whoever I'm with at the time, like intimately. I don't know why, maybe I'm like repressed or something, but I just prefer to be sexy with the girl that, I'm being sexy with within the confines of my own bedroom. Maybe it's the fact that, I really stuck to this ideal of what a gentleman is, and how a gentleman, only really shows that in the bedroom between who he's with at the time. Laugh all you want, but as I say, these things that happen in childhood really just define you as a person. So I wasn't used to being sexy and projecting that. Fast forward to the next shoot, which was with a man called Terry Gates, and I remember we were in this studio and it was a black backdrop and the clothes were really beautiful and sort of flowy, and it was quite elegant. The lighting was completely natural. We were in a studio somewhere in New York. And I remember it being, very pretty. And I remember working with Terry, and he was really nice, and I felt like I really had a good connection with him. And this again was going to be a sexy shoot. And so, there's one picture where I'm like half naked and I have like a belt behind me. I think it's a beautiful photo. You can decide for yourself because it's going to be up here somewhere in the video. And then, that was my shooting that was done in New York at that time. I've got a little like note thing here this time because this is a complicated video. There's so many different shoots, and I really had to remind myself of everything that went down. I don't want to miss anyone because you know, everyone's trying hard to be creative, and I'd like to credit people when I can credit people. And then the next thing I had to do was fly from New York all the way to Copenhagen, okay? And so this was just one shoot, and that was in Copenhagen. So I'd done these 2 shoots side by side, which were both single day shoots, and I was on set and I'd had my makeup and my hair done. Little known fact about modeling, but having your makeup and hair done starts to really affect your skin and starts to affect your hair, and your hair like dries out, and if you don't get much sleep, then, you know, everything just kind of compounds and it gets worse and worse, you know. So I'm on a flight. I've went straight from the Terry Gates shoot to a flight, so I still have all my hair done. I still have this like thick fake tan on me, which is impossible to get off. And I fly to Copenhagen, and as soon as I get off the plane in Copenhagen, I was straight away ushered to a car, and I was in a car, and I drove all the way to this sort of derelict, kind of abandoned work yard, where I was going to be shooting with shooting with the guy called Sune, and I hope that's how you pronounce the name. Yeah, and he was really excited to work with me. As I say, I love Europeans in general, and I get on really well with Europeans. I get on really well with Americans too, but especially in like places like New York and LA, there's more of like a, yeah, we're cool, let's get this done kind of attitude. Whereas in Europe, it's way more like relax and here's some coffee and let's just get to know one another. It's just very different. And I remember shooting with him, and I remember they were like, we're going to make your hair great for this shoot. We're going to make your hair great. And I couldn't find this picture anywhere. I have it in my archives. So hopefully by the time I post this video, I'll have it somewhere to send to you, because I loved it. It was the first picture that I ever got to see myself with grey hair. So I landed and I shot with him, and all of these shoots are like 7 or 8 hour days. From each shoot, only like 4 pictures when they're going to be used, but within a shoot, out of 4 pictures that are going to be used, sometimes you'll shoot like 1,000 pictures. So you'll shoot like 1,000 pictures all day for 8 and 9 hours in different light settings and different areas, and then the photographers send their favorite pictures to the editor, and then the editor decides at the end of the day what is going to go into the magazine. So yeah, and so they made my hair grey, and there's this really cool shot where my hair is like slicked back and it's all grey, and like my eyes are like really popping, and I'm like into the camera. I loved that picture from, you know, the moment that I saw it. I loved that, and I still love that picture. And I sent it to quite a few people being like, this is how I'm going to look in the future with my grey hair. But as soon as we finished the shoot, which was maybe around 5 or 6 p.m, I was back on a flight and I was flying back to London. So I've gone to New York, I've shot twice, straight onto a plane, landed in Copenhagen, shot all day, and then straight back on the plane within 1 day in Copenhagen. Didn't get to see any of it, but I could say, oh, I've been to Copenhagen, it's great. Copenhagen, you know, it's great. I could say that, but I didn't see any of it. I got to meet some people from there, but that was about it. And then I was right back on the flight to London, and I was quite excited about these shoots because obviously I'm English, so, and I hadn't really done much at this point in England in my career, and so I was getting to meet a whole new set of photographers, and so straight away I started shooting when I got there, and one of the shoots was in the photographer's house, and it was very like, the clothing was very sort of elegant, and we just used natural window light. It was actually in his house. I believe this was the Roger Rich shoot, and we were actually in his house with his family house, and everything was going on there, and it was like bustling, and I got there super early, and the shots were very elegant. And as I say, when you're modeling, the clothes that you put on really directly affect the sort of energy that you bring to a shoot. And because these clothes were super elegant, like I just remember like really posing in this sort of elegant way, and I love those pictures because there's a real calmness in my gaze, which doesn't always come. Like in the first shoot, someone asking me to be sexy, and when I look at the pictures of it, I can see a nervousness, but when someone asks me to be elegant and contained and powerful, I can do that. Like I love to feel that way, and so it's easier for me to present that in a photograph. Obviously got my hair and makeup all done and everything like that as well, just to make sure that I looked good. And then straight after that shoot, I'm back on a plane Yeah, I've got the whole list up here, like 27:05 shooting with Roger Rich, 28:05 flight from London to Hamburg, 28:05 shooting, and then I got right, so I got right back on the plane and went to Hamburg, and I went to shoot with a man called Jens Schmidt, and I remember this was like a beautiful photo shoot. One of my favorite pictures from it. I'm in like this white t-shirt, and so we're shooting all day in nature this time. So we're outdoors, and we're using outdoor light, and we're all kind of moving around and on location. But not like it would be in the future, where we have like big vans and stuff, and it's kind of like protections against like people watching and all that kind of stuff. This was just like guerrilla shooting. We just went on location. So, again, the clothes were very different. The vibe was very different. I remember Jens being a very interesting man, and very calm and very artistic. And we shot all day, but I definitely remember feeling like he hadn't got the pictures which he was happy with that day. And I remember thinking and feeling that. But anyway, lunchtime came, and we had lunch in the back garden of this cafe, and it was this beautiful back garden in Hamburg somewhere, and like there were these like beautiful beautiful flowers, and it was like this beautiful European sort of deck, and there were these beautiful flowers. And I just remember, after eating my lunch, still in my clothes and my hair and makeup, standing next to these flowers, and Jens was like, "Hey, wait, stay there, stay there, stay there." And so we did like a 20-minute little photograph session in front of these flowers, and that ended up being one of the covers of the magazine, which is pretty amazing, for him to have noticed that moment in that time, and to want to capture me like that. And he did that, and it was one of my favorite photographs from the entire shoot. And then I was shooting with another person called Sabrina in Hamburg again, and I remember this one was at a studio shoot, and I went there, and there was like a brown background, and they had me put on glasses. It was quite similar to my car van shoot that I did in my previous episodes. It was like very elegant, very young, again, just elegance. It wasn't like the New York shoot, which was like sex, sex, sex. This one was like elegant in Europe, which, still to this day, I work better in Europe than I ever do in America. Europe is way more my vibe in terms of what photographers want and what agencies want. It's way more my vibe. I maybe don't look so like this, wearing my fisherman's t-shirt and my baseball cap, but I have an elegant classical look in the modeling industry, what you'd refer to as classic look. And when I'm on set, maybe it was my acting training, but when I'm on set, especially, not in my real life, my friends will attest, I'm big and I'm goofy in my real life, but when I like get to that center of focus, and my artistry tends to be quite elegant, and that's what I go towards. And so I remember working with them, and they were all really, really, really nice. And I do remember, this is a really random memory. As I say, I only really get these when I'm doing these videos, but I remember, so one of the first times where I had to sort of work with furniture and sit on like apple boxes and stuff. Apple boxes are these wooden boxes which they use on photo shoots, sometimes to raise the model up if two models like a different height and they want them the same height, and other times so the photographer can sit on them. And they're just these like plain boxes, but they're really industry standard and everyone uses them in the industry. They put their cameras on them and all that kind of stuff. And I remember it's the first time I had to work with furniture, and it was quite awkward, like getting my positioning right and sitting right and getting the right angle, That's one of the things which throughout my modeling career I got really good at. This whole like plane of field between the lens and me and my angles and what angles are best. So if my shoulders are shoved here and my face is here, and then I move my face and my eyes go to the camera, it's like it looks really pretty on camera when you are able to sort of shift the way that you look. And that's one of the aspects of modeling which I really enjoy. I love playing with the camera in that regard and getting these angles and making like a really attractive photograph, like the position of my legs. At this time, I still didn't really know what to do with my hands ever. My hands were always like, what do I do with my hands? Throughout my modeling career, I've just loved to put my hands in my freaking pockets, make angles with my elbows, you know, and because everything on perspective when you're taking pictures, it really matters. If I sit like this and if I flex this arm and put this arm forward and flex this arm's going to look twice as big as the one that's behind me in the flat field of view that a camera lens takes, you know? So I really enjoyed doing that through my career. And as I say, these photo shoots were 5 photo shoots with 5 different photographers, 5 different settings, 5 different styling choices. And so I really got to sort of explore a real variety of shooting within a really small space of time, and I really got to experiment. And so that was one of the really good things that I pulled away from this shoot as well. So yeah, I shot with Sabrina, and I believe that was maybe the last shoot. So I did Eli, Terry Gates, Roger Rich. There was another one called Ronald Dick, I think, which got switched out as well. And oh yeah, that's the last shoot I need to remember, because some of the photographers, they got switched out like as I was going. So I couldn't do one in New York, so they did a new one in another place. It was all very much on the ground and going and changing at all times. I didn't know who I was shooting with or where I was going. I was just completely relying upon my agents to really just book my schedule and get me in the right places. So yeah, I believe one of my last shoots was with Ronald Dick in Hamburg, I believe it was, and it was very much just off the cuff, but I loved it because in this picture, in this photo shoot, he decided to shoot my profile, right? And I hadn't had many pictures with just my profile in it, and so they slicked my hair right back, and they shot my profile, and it was very pretty. I also, this is again another memory that comes up, I also remembering having not shaving on this particular shoot. And so I had a little bit of stubble, and before that I'd have to shave for every single shoot, and it was really, really intense on my skin. I still don't really shave much anymore aside from just my electric shaver, because I just prefer not to have to like screw up my skin every single time. And I also look like a baby when I shave still to this day, so I just like to have this to remind people that I'm a man now. But yeah, so it was with Ronald Dick, and I remember it being really beautiful, and yeah, and then my and me being in profile, and I really got to see myself. You know, I got to see myself in dozens of pictures and really analyze again. Is this something which I can do? Even though I'd done the Zara campaign in between all this, and even though I'd done the work that I got to do, like this was one of the first times I got to see myself through the eyes of 5, 6 different photographers, and really make a choice of like, do I look good? Like, are people going to be excited about this? And yeah, and then so I did all those shoots, and then I was going home to London, and I was going to be waiting. I was going to be waiting for these pictures to be released, which gets me onto the next story, which I'll tell you now, which is to do with my actual career. So at the time I was with M&P Models in London, which was quite a small agency, but my main agent, the guy that was looking after me at this agency, who'd signed me to the agency, who at the time was not a senior booker, so he was one of the younger bookers, he was moving from M&P to another management agency called Unsigned, and this was run by a husband and husband. One was called Gavin, who actually managed Helena Christensen's career in England. He managed that gigantic model's career, and his husband, and they had a small men's division, and one of the guys which I'd met in New York was at there, and he was a very, very big model. His name was Alex Beck. He walked all the fashion shows, did all the campaigns. He worked for like Dior and everything. And so my agent, Johan, was moving to Unsigned, and he basically, it's very illegal to snatch models away from other agencies. There's like contracts and all this kind of stuff. So very subtly he suggested I should leave M&P on my own behalf and then join up with him at Unsigned. And because he was the only one at the agency that I thought was really paying me attention, and he got me my agent in New York, I don't, in Paris, maybe he was responsible for that, but really in Paris, I was responsible for that because I met the Paris agent. And all agencies travel to every single agency in a country. Like a French agency will go to Germany and see all the agencies just for that one chance of finding that one boy which might blow up, and they'll travel to all the agencies. So a lot of times, even if you're at a small agency, you'll get a real good chance to meet another agent at another big modeling agency and get the chance to sort of sign with them and be a bigger agency than your original agency. That's the importance of what they call a mother agent, which is the agent which controls all the other agencies, like controls the boy in the model's career in all the other agencies. So a mother agent is very important because if you're a mother agent, they get an earning from all the agencies and all the work you do around the world. The mother agent gets a percentage of it all. It's kind of like renting out these boys and getting a little bit back in the first place for the discovery of that boy, if you get me, if you're following along. And so I left M&P and I joined Johan, and one of the first things I remember was going to Covent Garden in London, and I was going to the new agency headquarters, which was unsigned. And I went to their new headquarters, and it was beautiful office in London. It was so beautiful, and I was like, I'm moving up in the world. It felt good. And I just remember getting in there and sitting on my agent's desk with these 4 covers side by side, each one my face. And it absolutely blew me away. I was like, I'm really making it here. Like, this is really, really working now. And so the first thing that this agency did was to try and sign me with a new London agency. And so I went around and I met people, but the one that I decided on was FM Models in London. And if you remember in my last video, I talked about how one agent said something to me which really changed everything. I went to FM Models in London, and the head booker there was called Stephen. One of the younger bookers there was called Susie, who I'm still friends with today, and another booker was called Adam, who I'm still friends with today. I met one of my really good friends who's called Lewis there, who's actually on the desk, the front desk, the receptionist desk. And I went to FM Models and met Stephen, and he was, very charming man. The agency was very successful. It had some of the biggest models in the whole world at this agency. They were known for being like a money agency, so they made like a good amount of money for their models, and all their models walked on catwalks and shows and all this kind of stuff. It was a very different vibe from M&P Models. It was far more professional and just far more visibly successful. A lot of stuff happened with that agency, and they're no longer around anymore. They changed into the Squad Management in London, which are still around, and I'm still with them. I'm still signed with the Squad in London to this day. I joined FM Models, and I remember getting these pictures back, and Stephen, the head booker, being like, Jamie, your photos are beautiful, but maybe you should try a different look. And he was a bit catty, but I like that sometimes to people, because at least it's honest. And he was like, maybe you should try something different. And I was like, maybe I should try something different. And from the shoots following that, I tried different things. I tried different expressions. I did the whole James Dean thing. Like I scrunched my forehead and everything. I tried like open honesty. I tried different things. I'm so much like Zoolander here. I worked on my magnum, my magnum look. One thing I never really nailed though was the sexiness, but hey, I've still got a future. Who knows? Maybe we'll see some more sexy pictures from me in the future. But I'd signed with FM Models. I'd just done the Zara campaign. I'd just done the official on 4 covers and got the pictures back, and they were beautiful, and I was starting to be posted on blogs, and everyone was talking about me. I was up on models.com and everyone was talking about me, and I just felt great. New agency, new mother agent. I'd got all these different agencies. I switched right then from Elite Milan. I told them I didn't like the way I was treated when I first came into modeling, and in Milan I didn't like the way I was treated, so I want to move. And so I went from Elite Milan to Why Not in Milan, which was another really big agency, with some of my friends there and stuff. So I was really excited. The future was opening up. I felt professional. I'd just done all this travel throughout the whole world, and I felt professional. I felt legit professional for the first time in my whole career, and the world really felt like it was my oyster. And I was about to be doing London Fashion Week and Paris Fashion Week, which I'll go into in the next video, and which, funnily enough, one of my friends calls it like the chainmail, the chainmail Fashion Week, because in one of them I'm literally just wearing like this tiny pair of swimwear and like these two chains going across me with these like two leopard purses. But I'll explain that in the next video. So yeah, that's a sort of like a little bit more information about the industry, how I switched agencies, how my mother agent changed and so I changed, how I was relying upon my mother agent to really direct me and start building a career and building a brand, so that, you know, in the really small time, which for a lot of people modeling happens before they get older and before their looks change or before the industry gets bored of them, we were talking about establishing a brand, making me an actor, making me a musician, like a real brand, like they had done with Helena Christensen. And so at this time I was super excited, and so I was back in London and I was ready to go. And let me tell you about that in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Jamiejwise. This has been my rambling of thought about everything. I'll upload the pictures with them, and maybe I'll provide some links so you can look at them. And if you have any questions and you want to know more, message me on my Instagram. It's Jamiejwise, just straight up Jamiejwise. Message me on Instagram. Like, comment, and subscribe on this. Ask me a question in the comments. Ask me anything, and I'll tell you anything. As I say, like, having conversations about this is really great, and talking to someone about it really starts bringing up these memories. I'm sorry about not doing a video in so long, but I've just been so busy. I'm going to try and keep this weekly just so I can get it going. But yeah, like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Jamiejwise, and this is my modeling journey of how I got to where I am today. And I appreciate you all for watching. Thank you very much.